Alrighty, let's have a little talk about Lemans bowls. All the time on this page, because I mostly do Ford carbs from the 60s, there I will post pictures or videos about a carb that looks like this. And someone will say, well, how does that work? And what's that called? I've never seen that before. Where did those come from? And a million other questions. You will probably not see this many Lemans bowl carbs in one place. Certainly not very often. The reason for that is the majority of these were used from 63 to about 67, and only on, racing or high performance engines. And so the carbs tend to be fairly expensive. Let's talk about the how and why. We'll start with that. The 4150, which all that means is, 2 metering blocks, 2 bowls, was invented in 1957. It had these. This is a painted one, but a side-hung bowl, right? We've all seen these. You have your needle and seat, one piece, little baffle, and a float. And as fuel fills up here, the float rises, shuts off the needle and seat. I don't need to really go too much into that, explain how or why. But the thing is, in 1957, this is what was in use, or something very similar to it. In 1963, Ford, Shelby, they wanted to start doing road racing. Unfortunately, with a side-hung bowl. If you're dealing with G's that are side to side, this float design and where it's hinged is a problem. You can have a really rich or really lean condition, as the level of the fuel is changing, it's totally screwing everything up. What you needed was a center hung bowl, one that the float pivots this way. Now, in drag racing, this here is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So a lot of people will say, well, why don't you use this kind of bowl? Well, it wasn't fucking invented. So in that, I think the first ones of these, which is the modern and actually a much more usable style, this was invented in 1965. These here are around 63. And for the, predominantly Ford used these, but this is here a Mopar carb from 1964. And this was used in NASCAR. And that was some of the first uses. This is a massive, looks like an 850. This is a 3259 from the 1st January, 3rd week, 1st month, year. So 3rd week, January 1965. 66, another 3259. 3259s were used on GT350s, Shelby race cars. 3255 was kind of a factory race carb. It was a 780, a little bit larger because these are 715s. So 780 is used on factory race cars, 427s, GT40s. You have reproductions and other originals and other Shelby carbs. Here's another GT350 carb. This was an early NASCAR, also high risers. This is from late 1963. A is November, so 4th week in November 1963. That's a really early one. And you can tell, to cheat a little bit more air, they milled the taller choke horn and they made a shorter one. And it's kind of cool because in 64 they have a dedicated casting for this short choke horn, but in 63 they didn't. So they just milled the old one and re-drilled the holes. And you can see here's a short horn. This is a BF, which is an early 850 Ford carb. You can see how the choke horns are different. They're lower. These are other 3255s. Pretty common. Here's one that's been milled. Anyway, So how do they work? Well, we understand how the side hung works. Here is a float from our Lemans bowl carb. And this is a small tab right here. What happens is this needle and seat assembly, which is a 3-piece assembly, the housing, the needle itself, and the gasket, it's screwed into the bowl, and it kind of comes like that. And you know, as the float comes up and down, it can shut or seal or open up. An example, here we have it open, and you can see the tabs all the way back in there, you know, just like that tab. And as fuel fills up, it comes up and it seals. I took the end plug out so you can kind of see what that looks like. See here, it's open, and then it seals. Open, it seals. It's not huge, but it works. And I mean, the whole idea, like I said, was that if you're in road racing and you're getting side G's, it doesn't really affect anything. Better fuel control. Unfortunately, since there's no external adjustment, there's no sight plug, there's no anything, they're very user unfriendly. By today's standards, I only really would use them for restoration stuff. I can't imagine preferring this style over your modern center hung bowl, which is just infinitely easier to use. You can tell though that they didn't really spend too much time designing, because if you look at this, it even has the same pad and design and everything as a regular side hung. They just made some adjustments to the dies and made a whole bunch of these. And you know, like I said, the earliest ones you're going to see are 63, and the latest ones used from the factory were 67. You had some 68, 69, 70, but they were more like, not reproductions, but like over-the-counter replacement stuff. And then later on, you get these, which are modern reproductions, probably made in the 90s or 2000s, or, you know, even up till today, I think they still make them. Anyway, if you have any questions or specific comments, please leave it in the comments, and I'll try to respond. I don't really know what else you'd want to know about them, but that's the whole idea. It was just built for road racing. And as soon as, you know, 65, 66, 67 came out, even in 66, Ford started using the more conventional style center hung bowl. It was just considerably easier. Anyway, all right, talk to you later. Thanks for watching.